Good evening, everyone. I will call to order tonight's Caldwell City Council meeting. It's June 1st, 2026, and the hour is 6 p.m. First on the agenda is going to be invocation, which tonight will be offered by Captain Amy Lewis from the Salvation Army here in Caldwell. So thank you for being here. So after Captain Amy provides the invocation, we're going to turn and we'll state the Pledge of Allegiance. So with that, go ahead.
Everywhere in the Salvation Army do you get to come to City Council and pray. I also want to let you know we pray for you all individually and collectively at the Salvation Army because you have stepped into a role and into a place that puts you out in front of people, and I want to thank you all for your commitment for what you're doing. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much. Lord, we thank you that we get to speak to you publicly in this community. Lord, I thank you too for all of the opportunities that we have to step into what your plan is for Caldwell. Lord, I know that there's times that we maybe don't all agree, but Lord, I know that everyone is trying to do what they believe is best. Lord, we ask for your blessings and your continued blessings on Caldwell, and Lord, if you will continue to show us what your plan is and how you would like us to be in our community. God, we are so blessed to live in the community in the city of Caldwell. Lord, it is a place that is like no others. And Lord, I just am grateful every day that I get to wake up and I get to be here among your people in your town. God, I know that, as I said, you have a plan. And Lord, sometimes it's hard to see. But Lord, we would like for you to make it abundantly known so we know what it is you want us to do, to work together as a community to serve every one of our members. Lord, because together we will be stronger than we would as separate individuals. God, again, I thank you for the blessings of the opportunity to speak and pray publicly, because, Lord, there's many places in this world that it's not allowed. God, I know that you are with us every step of the way. And, Lord, we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone can be seated, and thank you, Captain Amy from the Salvation Army here in Caldwell. We appreciate it very much. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councillor Tilmont.
Here.
Councillor Stodic. Councillor Register.
Here.
Councillor Williams.
Here.
Councillor Allgood.
Here.
Councillor Dittenberg.
Here.
Just for those in the audience, Councillor Stodic has gone this evening. He's been excused. With that, as next on the agenda is going to be the conflict of interest declaration. Are there any members who have a conflict of interest to declare relating to an item on tonight's agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Tilmont.
although I do not have a legal conflict with item number 4, I do believe I have an ethical conflict with it since that project abuts the subdivision that I live in. So I will be abstaining from that vote.
All right, thank you, Councillor Tilmont. Anyone else? All right, for those in the audience, I believe it's item number 6. I'd like to announce that the public hearing for the development agreement modification and preliminary plat for Covington Square subdivision will be continued until July 6, 2026 Caldwell City Council meeting. This is just a heads up so that the applicant and people who want to testify don't have to stay throughout tonight's meeting. And the public hearing on the matter, which will be rescheduled once again to July 6, 2026. That's item 26. But you're more than welcome to stay if you would like. All right, next up on the agenda is the Public Safety Training Building update by Ms. Haley Hart, our Public Works Director. So we look forward to hearing your report.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm here to discuss the public safety training building that is a project that is moving forward in partnership with the fire and the police departments. So a quick overview of the project for those who are not familiar. This is a box modular building that was funded through ARPA that is allowing for our fire and our police departments to have a training space out at their training grounds that they'll have these classrooms, they'll have other training uses, and allow them to be able to have this facility, like I said, out on their training grounds where they're already doing active training outside. The fire department currently uses the property for fire training, where they practice putting out fires and practice other scenarios, and the police department has a shooting range. This is shared by both police and fire. Both the building will be shared, and so the costs associated with it is shared as well. And this is just the first phase for them to continue to expand on this piece of property to continue their training abilities. And so here I've highlighted where this location is in red. You can see that it is just north of the Boyce River. Access to the site is a little tricky, and so I highlighted that in orange, so you can see this is how they access the site. And the red fully hatched area is where this box modular building is going. I also wanted to highlight, on the next slide, you'll see we had some issues with the or I shouldn't say issues, but some hurdles to jump over. And so one of those I wanted to highlight is our existing water currently extends only in Chicago Street to just barely cross the river. And so water and sewer were not available for this project when it was brought to engineering. So again, some of the restraints that we faced, like I mentioned, water and sewer were not available. And so that meant that water needed to be constructed for about 2,000 feet. This water line has been constructed now, so it's in. And then sewer, they needed to use a septic system rather than sewering into our treatment plant. Another restraint that this project has faced is that, like I said, it was used ARPA funding to purchase the building. However, because ARPA funding was used, they had to hurry and get it purchased within a specific time constraint, which put this project a little bit out of sequence for how we would normally run a project. So the building was purchased prior to Public Works and Engineering getting involved in the project to explain what types of areas of construction they would need to be made aware of, and to help budget the project holistically, knowing that it's not just simply putting a building on the property. Once engineering and public works were brought into the project, we talked through issues such as the floodplain, soil conditions, again, water sewer availability. So if you can see on this first top picture, the blue area shows where the floodplain is. The plan was that we would put the modular building right on that little grassy knoll so that we could stay out of the floodplain. However, that little grassy knoll had a whole bunch of fill brought in that wasn't ever fully documented, compacted, so we couldn't just put the building in that area. We had to remove that fill, do some compaction, put some structural fill back in to keep the elevation above that floodplain because there is so much water in this location. And so that added quite a bit of expense to the project. And then again, just bringing water to the site. I'm not sure who here has worked with FEMA, but anytime you're working with floodplain, it always makes a project more interesting. And so putting a septic system in a FEMA floodplain, again, we had to kind of work through a few more site constraints than what we normally would for a typical project. So these issues kind of have developed after the project got started because of that initial ARPA funding timing. We had to hurry and get the project kicked off so we could use that ARPA funding to purchase the building. So I know that really what people want to know about is how the project's going, what the costs look like. The project is running rather smoothly. I know that there have been multiple resolutions brought to council on this project, but again, that goes to we've just been working outside of our normal process because we've been piecemealing it together more than what we typically would like to do. So we came first with that box modular building, used that ARPA funding to procure that. And then we have been working with design teams and contractors since then to piecemeal together the project. Normally we would do this all under one designer, one contractor, and just come to you with one resolution. But again, this one's just the way that it worked out. We've just kind of been working with individual contractors to kind of bring this project forward. And so I just wanted to share with you, so far the amount estimated for this project is about 1.8 million, where we do have 1.8 million available for funding for this project. So we haven't gone over budget, but we have been having to bring change orders to you because we have been adding scope as we've come along and kind of noticed some of these restraints. And with that, and from my perspective, it has been a smooth project. It's all going well. We've got a great contractor working on the project now, and we now have all of those pieces figured out of what was initially missing when we kicked off the project of just a building. And I will be happy to stand for any questions. If you have more specific questions of the building and the project as a whole and want to know what the building's being used for, I would probably defer to our fire department to talk about that a little bit more in depth. Thank you.
Any questions for Director Hart? Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, Haley. So, and Ray Lynn may need to jump in on this. Did we put this 1.85 million in a budget somewhere? Is it somewhere where we're keeping track of that total?
Oh, here, I can go back for you.
So you can kind of see in the bottom right-hand corner of where the different funding sources are. So there is police and fire impact fees. So you can see we're actually going to go over budget in the police impact fee fund. And so there will be a budget amendment that will come forward for that because it is going to go over based off of the cost of the water line. And so that fund will have a budget amendment in it. The fire impact fees are fully budgeted. The ARPA fund was fully budgeted. And then because of the total cost of this project, we are going to, there's a portion that lies within the URA that we are asking URA for as well. The water line is being paid for out of the water department budget. Similar to, for example, if we had had a developer come in and do a water line, they would have just contributed that water line to us instead of the city paying for it. In this instance, the water department or the water fund is paying for it, and police and fire impact fees are reimbursing the water department for that. So it's a transfer of funds from police and fire impact fees to the water instead of because of how we do fixed assets.
So if the URA does not contribute the 165, how is that covered?
That would be covered by the water department directly.
Okay. And Haley?
Go ahead.
One of the things when this came to URA before I was concerned about is that we weren't running sewer with the water because we'll need both that direction. What's the plan there? I mean, why weren't we running both up Chicago at that time?
Absolutely, Councilman Allgood and other council members. So you can see the blue line here in this picture, and I hope that I made it big enough that you can see it on the screen.
Yeah.
That's where existing water is. Sewer does not currently exist to gravity into that line right there. And so if we were to gravity sewer rather than to pressure sewer, we would have to do another river crossing. The river crossing currently is a pressure system that is serving the northern urban renewal area. So we would have to do a new lift station, a new pressure main, a new river crossing, or we could gravity it differently to connect into the system. So sewer would have been a larger project than just the water is. Water is easy. We're connecting on the north side of the river. We run at about 2,000 feet to get up to the building. Sewer would require a significant amount more to be able to gravity sewer. So that's why we decided to go the septic route. And knowing that in the future we can connect to a sewer line, it just didn't make fiscal sense to try and force a sewer connection at this time.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Allgood. Councilor Denver?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Haley, I've got a question. If we can go back to that budget, that page right there. So just kind of following along the same line of thought that Councilor Allgood had. There's a difference of about $220,000 between what was budgeted for police and what is actual for police. How come the police amount was so much over budget and fire was not over budget?
Just with how the requests came in the fiscal 2026 year budget.
And so that $240,000 overage is all eligible impact.
That is correct.
Okay, so with regards to the 165,000 that Counselor Allgood spoke about, can that not also be an eligible impact?
So because of how the project was budgeted on the impact fees, if the entire project for this building was about $780,000 in the impact fee on the capital for what we're actually collecting fees for. So anything above that amount, we're not collecting fees for. And so that's why that request for URA contribution is coming in, not just automatically coming out of the impact fee fund.
Okay. So that makes sense. So with regards to the $165,000 that you've, that the city's requested from the agency, so right now the water department is paying for that. So why shouldn't the water department have paid for it in the beginning?
It's a tough answer, I would say, because I think with this, it changes the priorities for the water department. There's a lot of repair and maintenance that happens for user fees that the water department has. And this project was not necessarily on their current repair and maintenance and capital priorities. And just because of how this project came about, it wasn't necessarily part of the priorities for the fees that are being collected.
Okay,
Does
and that
make
makes
sense?
perfect sense, and that's where I'm going. So somewhere along the line, there's a priority list, that since this got at the top of the priority list, there's something at the bottom of the priority list that wasn't funded. What was that?
Counselor Dittenberg, other council members, I think Raylan did a great job of discussing why water didn't originally fund the project. And so, as she mentioned, the different priorities. So when water department last year was looking at our budget, this wasn't on the water department's, this wasn't a project to the water department. This didn't exist yet. It wasn't until Public Works and Engineering started heavily diving into it when we started to discover that water was needed to be brought to this site. And so, as Raylan mentioned, this water does serve the building, but it also serves the greater area. So the contribution that water is going to have is not the contribution all the way from the current connection point to the building. It's only the water line that's in Chicago. And the reason that we broke it out that way is because that portion in Chicago is going to feed the whole northern area, and it's going to provide that pressure loop so that we can have consistent pressures through the system. And so that's why the water department is jumping in and assisting, because it serves the greater water system north of the river. As far as projects getting bumped, I can't say specifically which project got bumped because of this one. More so it's that we learn as a fiscal year develops and continues. You know, sometimes we just find that there's not enough time to get all the projects done that we thought we would be able to get done, or other projects come under budget. I know it's shocking, but that does happen. We do have some projects come in under budget, and so we find savings through those scenarios rather than looking at a specific project that we have to cancel.
Okay, so here's another question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Counselor Denver.
So I don't know whether or not the chief answers this question, or Ray Lynn, or, so sometimes we hear that, oh, we're gonna do this project, and this project is reasonable because we're gonna have city services do it, and we'll just do it internally. And is it cost-effective to do it internally?
As far as the water construction,
Sure.
the reason that the water department did not do this one internally was because of the time we had available. We already had our time slated for other specific projects that served. I would say that those projects that the water department is moving forward with this year serve a larger area than this project does. And so we found it more important to keep our water department working on those projects, doing the construction on those projects that serve a broader community rather than this one. This one also, as I said, the water department is only focusing on that portion in Chicago Street. It's not the whole connection to the building. And so relatively, it's not a huge project. It's just, the water, I'm trying to think, the water department probably is only contributing, let me look back for scale, 1,000 feet of the water line versus the full 2,000 feet that's needed for the project. And so it's not a huge scope of work that we're having a contractor do. We already have a contractor on the site who's mobilized for other portions of the project, so it makes more sense for that contractor to continue to just do all of the site work.
Thank you, Councilor Dittenberg. Anything else from council? All right, thank you, Director Hart. Just before we go, do you want to hear from either of the chiefs about this project? Going good? All right, thank you, Director Hart. All right, and that'll end that update. Next on the agenda is audience participation. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding city-related issues that are not on the agenda. Those who want to speak tonight will have 3 minutes. Comments related to the public hearings, any public hearings, including decisions that may be appealed to the city council, are out of order and should be held for the public hearing itself. Repeated comments regarding the same or similar topics addressed are out of order and will not be allowed. Comments regarding performance by city employees are inappropriate at this time and should be directed to the mayor, either by making an appointment or after tonight's meeting if time permits. In order to ensure adequate public notice, Idaho law provides that any item other than emergencies requiring council action must be placed on the agenda of an upcoming council meeting. So the city council can't act on items raised during audience participation at the same meeting, but may request additional information or that the item be placed on a future agenda. So with that, we have 4 signed up tonight, and we're going to start off. When you come up, just give your name and address for the record. Once again, you'll have 3 minutes to participate. So currently, there's 2 signed up that have items that would be on the agenda, but as I stated earlier, we're going to move those. So an Anita McNeil was from Dorman Avenue. Are you here? All right, is that about the project, item number 6? Okay. Next will be, and you're aware that we're going to continue that to July 6th, correct? Okay. And then Mr. Scott West, referencing Verbena Ranch. Would you like to come up and speak?
Yeah, I want to do a quick handout real quick.
And just for your information, there's a clock right up here, and we'll go ahead and start the time.
I'm Scott West. I live at 16709 Ryland Avenue. I am on the board for Heartleaf subdivision, and I'm here representing the neighborhood. Currently, the project that's going on with Verbena Ranch and Toll Brothers, in our neighborhood's opinion, there are some significant problems with the dirt and dust mitigation. Our main concern is on the single sheet that I gave you, that looks like this, where a pathway was dug out and then all of the construction equipment was taking dirt right up against the fence on Ryland Avenue, which is about 14 homes going up, and they would be right next to the fence, and there were large amounts of dirt that would come into everybody's backyard. Subsequently, everybody has to clean up their yard every single night. And this isn't because of like the windstorm that happened last Friday. This is just like every day for the last 2.5 weeks. I have been in communication with Mohammed from Toll Brothers and also from Brian with the city of Caldwell They've both been very cooperative and communicated with me. Our neighborhood's biggest concern is who made the plan for the little alleyway to be dug out and to have all of the heavy scrapers, which are very large pieces of equipment. They're like 20 feet tall and about 35 feet long, and they're carrying dirt as they go up this little alleyway they made to take the dirt up to a higher elevation. So they drop it off because they're trying to make a higher elevated area. But whose plan was it to actually have all this equipment go through this alley right next to people's homes and pretty much just have billowing dirt covering our houses every single night? So that is my concern. I haven't really got an answer from anybody on who made that plan and how that happened, but I do think maybe in the future that should be a consideration when we're having housing developments next to other existing neighborhoods. And, you know, we understand that water is a big issue right now because we're kind of short on water, and the neighborhood would like to have more water trucks back behind there, but, so that is our main concern. I don't really have anything else. Does anybody have any questions?
Counselor Allgood.
Yes, sir. So in your conversations with the people from Toll Brothers and the city, was there any plan to correct this problem, or what were you told?
Mohammed told me that if it wasn't something that they were told to do by the city, that they would move the pathway. So I don't know what the extent of his conversation is with the city right now, but it sounded like he would be cooperative to move it if he needed to.
And you'll let us know if that doesn't happen?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Just information, Council Allgood. I believe we were discussing this in an email earlier, staff today, about the dust mitigation and some complaints, so we were going to be reaching out to them. Do you want to give a little insight?
Mr. Mayor, council members, yeah, I have been chatting with Verbena Toll Brothers today, talking about kind of their dust control and what we can do to mitigate it. I wasn't aware of this particular issue until after I had spoken with them, so I apologize I didn't bring this specific one up with them, but I'll reach out with them tomorrow and see what we can do about moving that dirt road. That is something that the developer typically controls, is where their access road is internal to their private property. It's not something that the city typically does. But it sounds like you've already had coordination with Mohammed and that they would be willing to work with the city to get that relocated so it's not right along the fence line. So I'll follow up with them tomorrow and see what we can do.
That would be great. I guess it's going to probably be done before some things happen, but my biggest thing I wanted to bring up tonight was that we look at these kind of things in future developments that are up against other housing neighborhoods. I just want to help other people in future situations, so.
Appreciate that, Scott, and we definitely will take note of that, and as we move forward, we'll make sure we factor that in.
I appreciate your time, everybody.
Thank you, and let us know if you have any other issues. All right, next will be Rebecca Sorens. Rebecca Sorens. Going once, going twice, no comments. They didn't say if they wanted to speak. And there's a Jennifer Celine, but this is also Dorman Avenue. Oh, just sitting down, sorry. All right, that'll be it for tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Denver.
I just have one comment with regards to Mr. West's comment, and I know he walked out. But just so the public knows what we were handed a picture of heavy equipment towering over the backyard fences of some residential neighborhoods. And also in there showed layers of dust all over patio furniture, all over equipment, barbecue grills, which would appear to be from the equipment that is towering over the fence line, just so you all know what it is that we were handed.
Thank you for that, Councilor Dittenberg, and thank you to those who participated tonight. And as always, we appreciate hearing your feedback. All right, next on the agenda is the consent calendar, since there are no motions, correct? Does anyone have any motions for amending the consent calendar? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Allgood.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
All right, that's a motion, and a motion is second. All right. Madam Clerk? All right, 5-0, the motion passes. Thank you for that. There are no items under old business tonight, so we will move to discuss new business and considering a resolution accepting the results and recommendations of the water and sewer rate study performed by Stantec Consulting Services. Director Hart will start this discussion item and will introduce the speaker to present the agenda item. Director Hart, thank you.
Mayor and Council, so the past 2 years, we have been working with Stantec to evaluate our water and our sewer rates, both the rates that we charge our citizens as well as the connection fees that we charge to developers or new homeowners who want to connect to our water and our sewer system. So today we want to present to you the results of this study. We have done deep dives into our master plans, into the way that our systems function, into how old all of our infrastructure is and what the life left is of that system, so that we can come up with proposed rates that we find fair and, most importantly, that we find backed by evidence. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Stantec, specifically Kevin Cook has been working with us for quite some time to do all of the really difficult accounting that I would not be able to explain as well as he can. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Kevin Cook. I'm project manager with Stantec's Financial Consulting Services, and today I'll be presenting the findings of the water and sewer rate study and our recommendations. So the things we want to go through today include the sewer financial analysis, a quick refresher on the water financial analysis that was completed last year. Then we'll move into the water and sewer cost of service, which then leads into the rate design study that we did. We'll go into a little bit of benchmarking on the rates, and then finally finish up with some sewer hookup fee analysis that we performed. So there's a lot of information to cover, so I'll try to keep it as brief and concise as possible, but we will open the floor for questions toward the end if we want to dig into anything in more detail. So just a quick little bit of background. The scope of this study included, obviously, the wastewater financial plan and the resulting plan of rate increases, a water and wastewater cost of service analysis, and then a rate design study as well, and then, of course, looking at those hookup fees. One thing to note that this is a continuation of a study that was performed last year for the water, and in fiscal year 26, those rate increases on the water side were implemented, as well as increases to the hookup fees. So with that, I'll just go ahead and jump right into the sewer financial analysis. So when it comes to the study and the creation of rates, it essentially boils down to three basic questions. Essentially, how much money do we need to recover? Who do we need to recover it from? And then how do we ultimately collect that revenue? So the first component is the financial analysis, and that really deals with the how much component. So what we do is essentially we take all of the detailed information, billing information, budgets, assumptions, et cetera, build it into a financial model, and then project out the cash flows for up to 10 years, and then develop a plan of rates based upon that. So some key assumptions, information, details that we used. Start off with expenditures. So for the wastewater, the fiscal year 27 budget was used as our starting point. We looked at all the expenses on a line item level, and then escalated those out based upon escalation factors, based on industry standards, as well as through discussions with staff. We also incorporated the capital improvement plan, which is obviously a very major component of the utilities expenses. This study included about $252 million through fiscal year 2036, and included in that was an assumption for a minimum CIP investment, which is basically based upon the annual depreciation for the collection and the plant, assuming 1% and 2% value. And then finally, One thing to note that this study does include the use of cash and hookup fees to fund the capital. We are not assuming any sort of borrowing. So real quickly, just pulled up, just for everyone's awareness, this is the CIP plan that was used. Not necessarily concerned with the actual values per se, but more just to show that this is a very detailed 10-year projection of all the specific needs, and also does include, again, that minimum amount needed. So that was the cash out portion of the analysis. The other side, the revenues, the cash coming in. Few main sources of income for the fund. Of course, the largest is the rate revenues, so all the revenues generated from user rates. And those rates are, again, based on the 2027 budget in 27, and then going forward, we increase those rates based upon our growth assumptions, as well as the rate increase that we ultimately decide upon. So two different components. There's a fixed and a usage fee. So the fixed component scales with customer growth, which we've assumed at 1,100 new sewer accounts each year, kind of held that steady. And then the usage actually shows a slight decline in usage per account, and that's just consistent with historical trends that we've observed, and is very consistent with trends just across the nation, conservation, as well as things like low flow toilets, things like that. So on average, you see a little bit of reduction in usage. All other revenues, kind of non-operating or non-rate revenue type revenues, are based upon, again, the 27 budget. And then we just held those flat to be a little bit conservative. And then one other thing to note, that this does assume an increase in the hookup fees to full cost recovery in fiscal year 2027, which we will discuss later on in the presentation. So then just a couple other things to keep in mind. So there is obviously the cash in, the cash out, and then there are some other operating considerations, some key metrics that we did build into the plan. So we did make sure that we maintained a minimum of $7 million per year per policy. We made sure that in the development of the rates, that ultimately we want to structure a rate plan that balances the cash in, or the revenues, and the cash out expenditures. And again, we wanted to be able to cash fund fully all of the CIP. So as I mentioned, all this information was entered into a custom financial model, and then we looked through different various scenarios and came up with different rate plans based upon those assumptions. So what we're looking at here is kind of the dashboard or results panel from that model. And what we're looking at here currently is what we're calling a status quo. Essentially, what would happen if we did not increase rates at all? So there's a couple things going on here. I'll draw everyone's attention first to the top left-hand graph there, and that represents the ending fund balance in each fiscal year in the blue bars, and then that black line represents that minimum target of $7 million. And you can see if we do not increase rates, we do have a bit of a balance in 27, but we're spending that down, as you can see in the chart next to it, which shows the cash in versus cash out. So you can see in each year that cash out, that orange line, surpasses that black cash in. So obviously we're spending those balances down. So if we do not increase rates by fiscal year 32, we will have no money in the fund whatsoever. So clearly that's not a sustainable plan. So what is? So based upon the information in this study, we've determined that inflationary increases of 3.95 would be sufficient in order to maintain balances, as well as sufficiently fund all operating and capital costs. You can see that the cash in does keep pace with cash out. Obviously, the capital plan does heavily influence that. So as in years with higher spending versus lower spending, that might go up or down, but in general, we kind of maintain that balance. And this would be a sustainable plan. So I'll pause there just so everyone can have a moment to take a look. And then with that, I'll quickly move on to the water plan. So just a quick refresher. Again, this is what was presented last year, and the 10% increases were adopted in 26. But based upon that plan, we're also looking at 10% increases in 27 as well. Water wasn't quite in the position as sewer. As you can see, fund balances were spent down a little bit quicker. So even with those increases, we're still just kind of skating by on that minimum reserve, but making sure that, we are being mindful of impacts to, customers' bills. So with that, we'll move on to the cost of service. So the results of the financial analysis essentially form the basis for the next component, again, cost of service. So now we know how much we need to recover. Now we need to determine who to recover it from. So I won't go into too much detail about cost of service, but essentially what this is a standardized way, standardized industry practice to determine who should be paying what based upon the unique demands of each customer class. This analysis conforms to many of the industry standards presented in American Water Works Association, Water Environment Federation. There's a lot of manuals and guidelines out there, and this approach does adhere to that. So at a very, very high level, cost of service can be broken down into 4 basic steps. So the first is looking at your revenue requirement, which we just established in the financial plan. Then we functionalize those costs. So basically, we look at all those different costs on a line item basis and say, okay, what does this cost, this specific expense pertain to as far as, say, treatment or the different components of transmission. Once we've allocated all those costs to those different buckets, we can then take those different buckets and then apply them to different customer classes based upon unique customer demands. So average day demands, peaking factors, things like that are all very unique to different customer classes, and we can basically link those costs to those different customers, which then obviously leads into step 3, so they're just allocating those to those customers. So jumping through to the results, you can see on the water side, based upon the cost of service, there's 2 things going on here. So first, in those black bars are the revenue under the existing rates, and then in the orange is the total revenue requirement. So you can see, for example, residential, 6.48, and these are in millions, is the current revenue generation, whereas the total revenue requirement is 5.71. And then on commercial, 2.12 against a revenue requirement of 2.88. So you can see that commercial is under recovering based upon their total revenue requirements, and then consequently residential is a little bit over recovering. Kind of the same idea on sewer. However, instead of residential versus commercial, we're looking at the 5 different categories of strength, which is the current billing paradigm. So you can see that essentially the main dynamic here is that category 1 is under recovering or over recovering a little bit, and then the higher categories are under recovering. So that information in the cost of service essentially serves as kind of a guidepost or provides information to consider when going forward into the rate design. So again, going back to that high-level approach, we know who should be paying, and then now we decide how to collect that. So cost of service is pretty much a mathematical approach. It's very straightforward. You're just linking different costs to the different costs to serve. Rate design, there's a little bit more art involved with that. There are a lot of considerations. Obviously, cost of service is one of them, but you can see just a few different things to consider: stability of the rates, equity between customer classes, simplicity, conservation. So there's a lot of different reasons why you would implement rates in a certain way. But overall, the goal or the ultimate result that we like to see is a sustainable rate structure. So in order to understand what we're recommending, first we're going to look at what's currently in place. So the current fiscal year 26 rates, you can see on the water side, currently there is a base rate of $9.90 charged to all customers, and then a use fee per CCF of $2.37. And then on the sewer side, there's a base rate of $32, again, for all customers, and then the use fee is based upon the different categories of assumed strengths. So one thing to point out right away that we've noticed is that the current paradigm has a singular base rate applied to all customer classes, which does not reflect the differences in capacity use for the different customer classes. Obviously, a customer with a larger meter size is much more likely to use a lot more water than someone with a smaller meter size. And then another observation is the single tier usage. So basically, especially on the water side, all use is being charged the same. So, any sort of price signaling, conservation, things like that, that's not necessarily being approached at the moment. So based upon that, we are proposing a few modifications. So starting off with the base rates, in order to calculate those rates, not to get too into the weeds, but these fixed costs essentially are recovering all the costs associated with customers and equivalent meters that we determined through the cost of service, as well as portions of kind of the average demand for water, and then portions of just the flow, and then the strength components, BOD and TSS for sewer. One of the changes we are recommending is to scale the base rates based upon meter size. So this is very consistent across the US based upon AWA meter equivalencies. So basically, higher meters will have a larger charge, which obviously links to their assumed use or capacity. So again, that recovers costs more equitably based upon assumed demands. And then the last bullet point there, these recommendations, these recommended rates, about half of sewer revenue requirements and then a third of water revenue requirements are going to be recovered through these proposed rates. And again, that's, works towards that idea of revenue stability. So the proposed 27 rates, you can see against the current $9.90 for water, we were able to keep that the same for all residential customers essentially, so 5/8 meters, 3/4 meter, those are going to stay the same at $9.90, but then that obviously scales out with those meter equivalencies per AWWA. And then on the sewer side, I believe it was 32, that's jumping up very slightly to 34, 43 for those lower meter sizes, and again, of course, that grows based upon the higher meter. So in total, residential customers will see a monthly base charge increase of about $250. So now moving on to the second component, which is the use fees. So these recover those variable costs associated with average day, max day peak flows, as well as a larger component of the treatment of the high strength parameters of BOD, TSS. So what we are recommending that's a little different, for water residential, we are recommending a tiered approach in which there will be 3 tiers. So the first tier would be for lower quarter of usage, and that is kind of considered often like a lifeline tier. So if you're not using much water, you're paying a lower rate. Then there's going to be that middle tier, which the majority of the usage is going to be at. And then finally, there's a higher tier, commonly called a conservation tier, which is going to be higher for kind of usage above a certain threshold. And then finally, we did update the sewer strength, so we're recommending keeping the same paradigm, the 5 strength tiers. One thing to note, though, that through the cost of service, we're able to look at the actual usage data, strength information. So the scaling is a little bit different than current, but that's based upon the actual data that we received. So here we're looking at the proposed 27 fees. So again, looking at the top there for water, you can see residential broken again into those 3 tiers. So through 0 to 2 CCF, that's $1.38. 2 through 10 CCF, that's $2.32. And then anything above 10 CCF is the $2.98. Commercial, we are recommending keeping at that same flat usage, simply due to the fact that that is very typical across the US, because commercial varies so widely that it's not quite like residential, and that you can establish those demand patterns. And on the sewer side, these are just the updated rates based upon the cost of service, as well as those slight changes to the different tiers based upon the assumed strengths. All right, so with that, I'll jump into some benchmarking. So what we're comparing here are the current rates versus the proposed rates. So we have a few different charts here. The first will be comparing the average monthly residential bill, and this is assuming 5 CCF. So you can see currently the monthly bill sits right in the middle there with $56 on sewer and $22 on water. With these recommended changes, the average residential customer will actually see a decrease in their monthly bill. So you can see you jump down under Idaho Falls, but still maintain your relative position kind of in the middle of the pack there. Next, we'll be looking at kind of the same idea, benchmark comparisons for monthly commercial bills with a 5/8 inch meter at assumed 8 CCF of usage. And you can see same paradigm there, the current versus the proposed. The proposed actually goes down a little bit. And this, along with residential, is very consistent with the findings of the cost of service in that residential is currently over-recovering, similar with small commercial because they're at that smaller strength tier. So then consequently, since we're shifting the burden of cost to some of the higher meter sizes, you see in this graph here, the average monthly commercial 2-inch bill at 17 CCF. And you see currently kind of in the middle towards the lower end, but that'll bump up the average bill impacts. Again, middle, but a little bit towards the higher. And then finally, with a 4-inch bill, we're seeing the same dynamic. So current versus proposed, with proposed going up a little bit. Do want to caveat, benchmarking is very useful, obviously very helpful to look at where you are compared to others, but do keep in mind there are a lot of limitations to benchmarking. Quite a few listed here. There are many others, but essentially, every utility, every community is very unique in how they're set up, source of supply, the treatment procedures that they use. So there's a lot of things that go into this. So it's always good to take that with a little bit of grain of salt. All right, and with that, I'll move on to the sewer hookup fee analysis. So the hookup fees are essentially charges to buy into the city's existing capacity for the different components of the sewer system. So there currently are 3 different fees. So the first is the main extension fee. So that buys into the city's existing collection system, and it's charged by a front foot basis with a minimum of 30 feet. Next, there's an interceptor connection fee. So that's buying into the city's trunk system, and that's charged for dwelling units for residential and flow for commercial customers. And then finally, there's the plant connection fee, plant capacity connection fee. So that's buying into the existing treatment plant, and that's charged, again, for dwelling unit residential and then assumed strength for commercial. So how these fees are calculated, pretty straightforward. Essentially, it's the replacement cost new less depreciation of the current system, so your current system value, less any debt, even though you guys don't have any debt. So that would be for the wastewater treatment plant, as well as the gravity mains, pressure mains, as well as any lift stations. And then you take that and just simply divide it by the capacity units, and that gives you your hookup fee. So for the hookup fee, what we are recommending first is to implement the fees at full cost of service based upon the updated system values, based upon detailed asset listings that we observed. And then the big change, structural change here, would be to combine the main extension and the interceptor connection into just a single collection system fee. That's consistent with the changes that were made last year on the water side, where we had 2 very similar fees. So it was the main extension and trunk line, and we just combined that into a single distribution system. This is just a little bit easier to understand, essentially recovers the same amount of costs, and kind of reduces some of that administrative burden of those multiple different fees. And finally, what we are recommending is to scale this again based upon meter size. So very similar idea to the usage rates, or the base rates, where obviously larger meter sizes have a higher demand, higher capacity need, so they should be paying a little bit more to buy in. So real quickly, the results. So we have the current fees, so the treatment, and then the collection system fee currently combined is $3,790. Do want to mention quickly that the collection system fee, that is the current combined total of the main extension and interceptor fee. That would be, So that would be the existing, and then the proposed is based upon obviously the updated system value, and that's $8,760. So change about $5,000. Just to put that into a little bit more perspective, we also performed some benchmarking, and you can see the current benchmarking fees, the current hookup fees for Caldwell are all the way on the cheaper side, actually the cheapest around. Going to the full cost of service, cost recovery, you can see that we jump up a little bit towards the higher end there. But again, just like the user rates, there are a lot of things to consider, and especially when it comes to hookup fees, these are fees that are not often updated. A lot of utilities go many, many, many years before they're updated. So I would venture that, some of those lower ones are probably fees that have not been updated in quite a while. And what we're seeing kind of on average across the US is these are fees specifically that people are looking into more, and we're seeing them jumping up, pretty much across the board. So we do have a final slide that just summarizes the results. But before we jump there, I just wanted to open up for any questions, if there was anything that we want to jump into any more detail.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions from council? Councilor Allgood.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your presentation. That was good, although, but the last slide was kind of shocking, more than doubling our connection fee, 3,000 some to 8,000 some. Does it change the model any if we phase that in over a period of time, or is that something we need to be where we need to be? Is that something that needs to be done right away, or what is your thoughts on that?
Yep, so the results that we looked at for the sewer with those 3.95% increases, that was assuming full cost recovery in 27, so that adopting the 8,000 next year. If we were to phase it in slowly, we would have to rerun the model to, say with 100% certainty, but of course that would put more rate pressure on the fund. Could it result in increased rates? I would have to, run those results to be 100% sure. But in general, we'll say that, ultimately someone is paying for it. And what we typically recommend is, we would like to set rates so that those people are paying for essentially the service that they're getting.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Allgood. Any other councilors? All right, thank you.
Okay, so then real quickly, just to summarize everything up. So we're proposing the hookup fees based on the current buy-in value, based on the updated system value. We determined that inflationary increases are sufficient to meet the sewer revenue requirements at 3.95%. Based on the cost of service, residential is over-recovering, commercial is under-recovering. On the sewer side, category 1, so that lower strength, is over-recovering. Categories 2 through 5 are under-recovering. So those changes are reflected in the rates that we showed. So we're proposing that, the water and sewer rates, you adopt the water and sewer rates to approach the cost of service and then still mitigate impacts to customers. So what we are asking today, requesting board acceptance of the cost of service and the rate design analysis.
Just confirm no further question from council. All right, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to move to a motion to approve the resolution accepting the results and the recommendations of the water and sewer rate study performed by Stantec Consulting Services.
I had a question for maybe Haley or
Go ahead,
yourself
Councilor
or
Allgood.
whatever, but we're not changing rates tonight, we're just accepting the analysis, am I correct?
That is correct. This resolution is just to accept the study that has been completed. And then I will continue to work with Ray Lynn during this budget cycle, and I will propose fee changes at the July 9th hearing, and that will be the time when you actually vote on the fee change itself.
Thank you.
All right, so it is just for the report tonight, so thank you for that confirmation. Be item number 1 on the
Mr.
suggested
Mayor,
motions.
I move we approve the resolution accepting the results and recommendations of the water and sewer rate study performed by Stantec Consulting Services.
All right, that's a motion and a second. Council members can now vote on the motion. Madam Clerk. All right, that motion carries 5-0. With that, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we will be back. All right, thank you. All right, we are back from a brief recess. We good to go? All right, so we just took care of action item number 1. We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the presentation by Caldwell's consultant Karen Dash on the Community Development Block Grant 5-year 2026 to 2030 Consolidated Plan and the CDG Program Year 2026 Annual Action Plan. Sorry, actually, this is going to be Robin, or are you going to do the introduction?
Just an introduction.
Okay, Director, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have been the last, year? Yeah, last year, working on our 5-year consolidated plan for CDBG. It's basically a strategic plan, and she'll go through all of that with you. HUD requires us to have a new plan done every 5 years. It's quite a task to do it, so we did have an outside consultant do it, which is Karen Dash from Karen Dash Consulting, and she is here from Wilmington, North Carolina. Never been to Idaho before, so please help me welcome her.
Thank you, Director Collins. Ms. Dash.
Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, council members. It's been a pleasure to work with Director North and Director Collins on this project. And I'm happy to share the results with you today. I presented back in January, so I think some of you may be familiar with this material, but I'll go through it briefly. We were discussing community development block grants. They're funding that's provided by HUD, U.S. Housing and Urban Development, throughout the country. It's based on a formula that's based on population changes as well as need within a community that might be measured by poverty rates, by housing data, and so on. The goals of the funds are to provide decent housing and a suitable living environment for citizens and expanding economic opportunities. There are other funds that are available through HUD, which you have listed here. Caldwell does not receive those funds at this time, but this is all part of this program. So these funds can be used for a variety of community development purposes, focusing on things like revitalizing neighborhoods, expanding economic opportunities for folks, and also improving facilities and services throughout the community. The national program has these national objectives that they would like the communities to at least meet one of them in terms of benefiting low and moderate income persons, preventing or eliminating slums or blight, and if there are urgent community development needs that need to be addressed, this funding can be used for that as well. So as Director Collins mentioned, there's a lot of reporting that goes into this. We'll be discussing the 5-year plan, the consolidated plan today. We have also prepared a 1-year annual action plan for the 2026 to 27 year. We put together an analysis of impediments to fair housing. We'll talk about that a little bit going forward. And then a citizen participation plan to ensure that we get as much feedback from as broad a community sampling as possible. It's a 5-element process. We've been doing it for, I guess, close to a year now, and we're now on element 5 of the public review and comment section, today presenting our results to you. And then these will be submitted to HUD before August. They'll be submitted for funding approval. So it's been a great plan. We've had, there were some folks in the room I know who participated in this plan with us. We had over 70 citizens and over 15 agencies were represented within the plan. We had 4 public hearings and focus groups. We had interviews with key partners and stakeholders. We had community surveys. We had an English and a Spanish language version. We didn't receive any Spanish language responses, but we did get nearly 50 English language surveys. So part of the way we go through this process kind of to look at the data that helps us to inform our decision making about what makes the most sense in terms of addressing the needs of the community. We look at key housing and income data. This data here, these are 4 of hundreds of pieces of data that we looked at, but I thought they were quite illustrative. You can see on the right the median household income in 2024 for the city of Caldwell and the poverty rate as well. There's a group called the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which I believe has done some work with the city over the last couple of years. They put out a report every year called the Out of Reach Report, and they provide a look at different housing markets. Unfortunately, they don't go to the city level here, so the data on the left is for Caldwell County. Within our reports, within our annual, our analysis of impediments, as well as within the con plan, we include data that shows that the rents here and the housing values here in Caldwell are still a bargain compared to a lot of other communities nearby. I know that they're still high, but comparatively, they aren't. So these data on the left show for Canyon County overall, the 2-bedroom fair market rent, and then in the bottom left corner, the number of jobs at a minimum wage that would be needed to be able to pay that 2-bedroom rent. And on the very right, so what the National Low Income Housing Coalition does is says, well, what is the hourly wage that we would need in order to afford that fair market rent for a 2-bedroom? That would be $35.35. And you can see that there are a variety. This is just a sampling of job titles that do not earn $35 per hour and therefore would have difficulty meeting those fair market rents. The next few slides are maps of the city that just show some different aspects of the city. Here we have median household income. So you can see that there are, in the north, I should say the darker colors represent higher levels of income, and the lighter colors lower. And so you can see that northwestern, northern, central Caldwell have more concentrations of lower or moderate income households. In terms of bachelor's degrees, you can see that they generally are higher shares of residents with bachelor's degrees tend to be in the northeastern or southern part of the city. Median home values, again, those in the northern part of the city, the northwestern part of the city, tend to be a bit lower. So the census suggests that the median home value of homes here in the city of Caldwell is $367,000. I remember that the data that's in the reports, the larger reports, shows that I believe it's in Meridian, their home values are about $160,000 higher than here. And so that, they are, the home values here and home prices here are still affordable, relatively speaking. I recognize that affordability is an issue. In terms of rents tend to be lower in the northwestern and southwestern parts of the city. The next few slides just talk about the feedback that we receive from our community. We have a few slides on our community survey responses, and then a little bit about what we learned from our focus groups and interviews. So as you can see here, folks could check as many of these categories as applied. And so we had a broad spectrum of perspectives represented. About 2/3 were homeowners who responded. And then most folks, a good share of the folks came from the 83605 zip code, with others represented as well. I know perhaps not all are within the city. The next few slides, we asked the folks who completed the survey to rate various categories of needs within the community on a scale of 1 to 3, and 3 was the highest need, 1 is the lowest. So you can see in terms of housing, affordable housing rated very highly. Home ownership assistance rated highly. All of these really did at 2.6 or above. In terms of infrastructure, transportation services were highly rated as a need for the community, as well as needs for sewer, water improvements, street and sidewalk improvements as well. In terms of public service needs, services for mental health and behavioral health ranked very highly, as did those for homeless people, child care, and so on. You can see that they're all quite high, ranked quite highly. And in terms of economic development and financial assistance and needs, again, a lot of them rated very highly, not all of them, but emergency assistance for utilities, rent, and fuel ranked quite highly. In terms of our public meetings and focus group feedback, what we learned from our stakeholders was that one of the most important things we need to do is to increase the supply of decent, affordable housing through repairs for people who have fixed incomes but need repairs to their homes, working with developers to build affordable units by helping them, for example, to obtain LIHTC funds, expanding homeownership opportunities through assistance, and providing emergency rental or utilities assistance. Lastly, there was a recognized need for public services for a variety of vulnerable groups, as you can see here. And then also being able to strengthen our public facilities to make them accessible for all citizens. Talked about the analysis of impediments to fair housing. I know that last year the council approved a resolution to create greater awareness of fair housing issues within the community, and it really has impacted, I think, the levels of awareness. So here are some potential impediments to fair housing. The first one is the high cost of housing, which is clearly something that's happening throughout the country. That's nothing that's particular to Caldwell, nor is it something that the city of Caldwell has any control over. But we wanted to share these as examples of issues affecting accessibility. The second one here says lack of awareness, but I would say that the lack of awareness is not so much on fair housing issues. In the survey, around 84% of all respondents were aware of fair housing. There were just lower percentages of aware of how to report a fair housing complaint. So that might be an area of opportunity for the city to continue to raise awareness. Fair housing challenges for people with disabilities. I've been doing fair housing assessments for about a decade now, and over the last several years, maybe 5 years or so, that's really gained in terms of nationwide, that the fair housing challenges for people with disabilities in terms of getting modifications perhaps for their rental units and things like that. We did find that there might be an opportunity to educate builders further, both in terms of understanding accessibility within housing development, but other needs as well. I remember one of our stakeholders said that in speaking with a builder, the builder said, gee, I didn't know we could do that, you know, and so there might be an opportunity to create some sort of checklist to guide developers or builders through that process. And there are samples out there. We include them within the reporting. The last two issues are not issues that are Caldwell specific. Within Canyon County, the eviction court does not have a third-party mediation option, which I guess happens in Ada County. And someone who works with eviction prevention suggests that within Ada County, about 80% of the folks that go into some sort of plan with their landlord payment plan are able to successfully complete that plan. Lastly, I know that Idaho state laws regarding homelessness have changed the conditions for homeless people in cities of over 100,000 and have perhaps encouraged some folks to move out of those larger cities into smaller cities like Caldwell. So in summary, our consolidated plan priorities I think we've mentioned all this already, but providing decent, affordable housing, improving access to public facilities and other parts of the community, providing services and supports for vulnerable people, and expanding opportunities for low and moderate income housing people, resulting in improved housing and neighborhood opportunities, economic empowerment as well. And I think that's all I have. If you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Karen, for that wonderful presentation. Any questions from Councilor Elgood?
I apologize, I had to step out for a minute, but is that, you know, housing and the cost of housing is a kind of a nationwide issue right now. Is anybody come up with an idea, a way to help to improve the situation anywhere around the country? Are you aware of that people are someone's come up with an idea to help the situation?
Yeah, there are different strategies employed throughout the country, and it kind of depends on the conditions of that community and the funding that they receive and the relationships with builders and so on. I think that most of the clients with whom I've worked, cities similar in size to Caldwell, that they often utilize a similar approach to, yes, trying to help builders to attain funding, for example, the low-income housing tax credit funding, or to provide them with lots or building lots to defray the cost of housing, so that that is covered to some degree and lowers the cost of that housing. But I think kind of the main strategy I've seen a lot now is helping people to maintain the homes that they are in, particularly for seniors, for example, who might have fixed incomes, they have older homes, and perhaps they just need some help rehabilitating those homes so that they can stay in the home. Same with people of limited means. So I think it really varies. There are some communities, I think in San Francisco, I think they have tiny homes communities, for example. So they have very, very small homes, but people have their own little space and community. There are a variety of great approaches and creative approaches out there. It's just kind of a lack of funding, I think, in a lot of communities to pursue them.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilor Allgood. Any other questions from council? All right, thank you for that.
Thank you. Do you have to ask for approval?
All right, now we're gonna, Director Collins.
Mayor and Council, I was just going to say, now we just need to open it up for any public comments.
Yes, we're gonna go ahead and open it up for the public hearing to hear public comments for the CDBG 5-year 2026 through 2030 consolidation plan and the CDBG program year 2026 annual action plan. If anyone signed up, they'll have 3 minutes to testify. We did have one person sign up in favor, but it was a mistake on the signature in favor. Go ahead and open up that. There is no one neutral and no one in opposition. So with that, we're gonna have no one for the record, obviously, no one to testify, no questions from council for those testifying. Go ahead and close.
Yes, Mayor, you can go ahead and close the public comment, and then you can move on to the resolution.
Yes. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and close the public testimony. We had no one signed up, just for the record. This agenda item, and it's item number 2, is an action item, and I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 148-26, is that correct? All right, let me get caught up right here. CDBG Action Consolidation Plan and Program Year Annual Action Plan, and authorizing those to be submitted to HUD and executed following HUD approval. Is that correct? All right. With that, council would like to make a motion. Councilor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the resolution number 148-26 adopting the Community Development Block Grant 2026-2030 Consolidated Plan. The Program Year Annual Action Plan, including analysis to impediments of fair housing, authorizing the submission of both to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and authorizing the execution of the grant agreement upon HUD approval of the plans and receipt of the grant agreement.
Thank you, Councilor Williams, for that motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk. All right, with that, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Council. Can move on to the next item on the agenda is an action item and is a public hearing on case number ANN-25000016 and SPP 25-000018. The applicant Mason and Associates, Inc., on behalf of August Park LLC, is requesting annexation of a parcel with a zoning designation of R1. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat application for August Park subdivision, which is a single-family residential subdivision with 24 buildable lots and 8 common lots. The site is located within the Neighborhood 2 place type for the future land use map. The approximately 9.40 acre site is located in the west side of South Florida, approximately 1,080 feet south of the intersection with East Houstic Road in the city of Caldwell. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing, and it is essential to follow the process to ensure that participants are treated fairly and respectfully in helping to inform the decision that is made. Just for some instructions, first we're going to hear from the applicant or their representative. We'll have up to 10 minutes to speak, then staff will provide a report on the application. Then we'll hear public comments for those that have signed up on the sign-up sheet. And we'll obviously go in favor, neutral, and finally we'll end with opposed. Each person must start by providing their name and address and must speak in the microphone. Everyone will have up to 3 minutes. Comments must be relevant to the application, and we do have the clock on the wall. Of course, as always, please don't repeat comments made by others. Try to find, new information if you're going to provide input, and after public comments, the application or their representative will be given 5 minutes to rebut their public testimony. After rebuttal, if no new public testimony or other comments may be offered, unless the public hearing is reopened. First, we're going to hear from the applicant. We'll have up to 10 minutes. Once again, your time will start right here on the wall.
William Mason with Mason and Associates. Our address is 924 3rd Street South in Nampa. So we're here on behalf of August Park LLC to ask for annexation and zone to a residential R1. We meet the comprehensive plan map requirements and the comprehensive plan. The project is located on the west side of Florida, about a little less than a quarter of a mile from Ustick to the south. So that's our vicinity right there. Florida is on our east side. We have a single road because we're a long, narrow piece. It's about 1,300 feet east-west, and it's only 345 feet north-south. So with that, we come in with a little bit of a lower density than, in the middle of your neighborhood 2. We're actually on the low side of that. We're at 2.56. However, we do have residential lots existing to the south of us, and our lots are pretty comparable to theirs. We may be slightly larger. With the neighborhood 2, if the project was a little more square, we may have come up with a higher density, but we're, like I said, 2.56. We really match what's there to our south. We also are kind of in an enclaved area where the ground to the north of us is still in the county, but around the entire area, we are in city limits other than these areas. So with that, I think I'd stand for any questions or let you go ahead and have staff present.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions from council? All right, staff.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Morgan Besaw, Planning and Zoning. The application in front of you this evening is for August Park, which is an annexation of parcel R274600000 with an initial zoning of R1, neighborhood residential, as well as a preliminary plat consisting of 24 single-family detached building lots. The project is proposed to be developed in a single phase. The site is just under 10 acres and is located on the west side of South Florida Avenue, approximately 1,000 feet south of the intersection with Ustick Road. You can see the zoning on the right, that this parcel is really surrounded by city, maybe not immediately adjacent, but on all directions. So it is under 10 acres and located heavily surrounded by cities, so we have designated it as an infill development. The applicant is proposing 24 single-family detached residential homes, which conform with the purpose of the R1 neighborhood residential zone. in code that states that the R1 zone is to accommodate single-family residential, as well as townhomes and duplexes. The proposed density of 2.56 units per acre is at the very low end of the allowable density, which is allowed at 2 to 8 units per acre. So they are just over the bottom threshold of 2.56. Oh my goodness, I have not been scanning through these. I apologize. I'm telling you to look at the map and I'm not even showing it to you. Okay, here's the zoning with the infill. Thank you. Okay, long day at the office. So surrounding land uses. The subject parcel is currently vacant. However, it is surrounded by a mix of single-family, residential, as well as agricultural uses. There is a large farmland parcel to the west. However, that does have active entitlements for Hoshaw. Hoshaw is entitled for 4 commercial lots, 264 single-family lots, as well as 1 multifamily lot. So that's the large farm area immediately to the west. There's an existing development to the south, as well as some other single-family residential that could potentially be redeveloped in the future to the north. All right, here's the excerpt from our comp plan and our future land use map. The parcel is designated within that neighborhood 2 place type. The neighborhood 2 place type has R1 as well as R2 as allowable zoning districts, residential zoning districts. It is the primary residential place type in the city of Caldwell, and this encompasses residential areas that provide an array of low to mid-density housing options. These areas are located outside of most commercial centers, but should still be well connected to nearby services and would allow some low-intensity commercial as well at the corners of major intersections. The requested R1 zone is compatible with the place type. Here is the subdivision layout. It is for 24 single-family residential buildable lots. They are also proposing 8 common lots with a total of 9.27% open space, where code requires 8%. So they are exceeding the minimum required open space amount. They will take access off of South Florida, which is a major collector that is on the east. They have also been stubbed out on the south to the existing residential development, to the west to Hoshaw, and to the north for potential future development. Due to the size and scope of the development, a traffic impact study was not required. And following the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the applicant revised their landscape plan and preliminary plat to include a community 8-foot wide pathway with landscaping in accordance with city code along the Fenton Lateral, which is identified in the orange. So on the north side of their internal east-west road, to the north, they included an 8-foot wide community pathway at the request of council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so that has been modified in your packet. That condition has been stricken because they have complied with it and updated all of their plans. So as conditioned, the project is compliant with all required city and state codes. Utilities are available or will be made available to serve the proposed use as conditioned. During the public comment period, we received comment from Valley View School District stating that growth predictions so that the district will reach capacity by 2029. However, the elementary school, which is in the vicinity for August Park, is expected to be the least impacted, and it has the greatest ability to serve those elementary schools. So that from Valley View. ITD said that they had no comments or concern as the application does not meet the threshold for a traffic impact study. No public comments were received at the time the packet was sent out to council, but there was one public comment that was received by staff, that is correct, and has been passed out to the council. I've also summarized it on the screen. That last comment was from Christopher Barker, and they submitted comment in opposition to the application, expressing concerns regarding the capacity of city infrastructure for new development, as well as school capacity and general traffic congestion in the area. The Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 8th hearing recommended approval of the requested applications with the one following additional condition. It is in your packet, so you don't need to add it, but this was added by P&Z. The applicant shall install a 6-foot privacy fence along the 2 property lines adjacent to 4406 South Florida prior to signature of the final plat as is depicted on the preliminary plat. So that is on the east corner, northeast corner against Florida, that sort of long horizontal white rectangle is an adjacent property owner who's not part of the plat. And so the P and Z Commission did request that this developer put up a new 6-foot privacy fence where they border that parcel. And that is everything I have, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that report. From the staff, council, any question? Councilor Williams.
Thank you. Morgan, thank you for advancing the slides for us so we could see what you were talking about.
Anytime.
Design review would be part of this later on, or what?
I do not believe that Florida was one of our streets that had design review designated for it, for requiring design review.
Yeah, Four Seasons is a nice, nicer development, and I'd like us to at least maintain, if this were to move forward, I'd like to be sure that there was some design review, but that's something we could include if we chose
Well,
to.
I would include it now. It is an annexation, so I'd be happy to add a condition of approval that, prior to issuing any building permits, that they submit design review for the proposed elevations.
And staff could handle that, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Williams. Anything else from council? All right, thank you. Thank you for the staff report. Now we will open the public hearing. And if anyone has signed up to testify, I'm just going to skip over because the only person that was in favor was signed up was Mr. Mason. With that, there's no neutral and no opposed. So I'm going to go ahead and close the testimony. Correction, we want to hold it open for rebuttal. There's not going to be any rebuttal, so we'll move on from that. With that, since we have completed the public hearing, I declare the hearing closed and the council can discuss the application for making motions and voting. Anything from council? Councilor Holgood.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I'm missing it, but the council does not have any language on this to make a motion.
Yes, you do. I just haven't passed it out yet.
Staff, Councilor Register has a question.
Well, it's probably a question for the applicant, but I think I'm going to have to ask you if the hearing is closed. There's no pictures of what the houses look like, and I'm guessing that's what Councilor Williams was also kind of getting at. So is that something that still would have to be approved by council, or that would be approved separately by you?
Thank you. As Councilman Williams proposed it, he said it would be staff level, but it could be DR Commission level. I'd be happy to write the condition however you preferred.
Well, I think it's fine for staff to do it. I wonder if there's anything in there that needs to be more specific about.
Yes, that would be wonderful. The more specific the condition, the easier it is for staff later on. So if you wanted to specify, at least 2 colors and materials, like 2 materials, 2 colors, 2 materials, 3 colors. I don't know.
Okay.
That's like a good ballpark that I
Right.
would recommend. We have been discussing putting those in our design guidelines, and we also require that for our duplex style development. I believe we require at least 2 materials and 3 colors.
Is it possible then to include some language that says that whatever the designs are will be consistent with whatever the design committee has in place already?
You could request that they be So even though they're single-family, you could request that they are compatible with our duplex standards, because you have seen those and you have approved those. We haven't adopted design review standards for single-family yet, so I haven't been able to present you any, but you have seen the duplex ones.
Okay.
So I would say to comply with maybe the building materials and colors for duplex development, as outlined in city code.
I'd like to hear from Counselor Williams also, because I know that he has probably some of the same concerns I do with not having renderings and making sure that they fit the area as well as the landscaping. And you're probably better at putting the words to that.
Thank you, Councilor Register. Councilor Williams, want to give it a shot?
Thank you, Councilwoman Register. Elevations only go so far regardless. My concern really is that we maintain that equal level of what we have in that vicinity and continue in that vein. Already, if we're going to, if we zone this as an R1, we're moving in that direction already. I want to make sure that the comprehensive outlook of this follows through with that. So I have a feeling if, in public hearings closed, but I have a feeling if we were to ask the developer, it wouldn't be a problem. I just want to make sure that it is stipulated, and if it's easier for you for us to use the duplex language, I'm convenient with that. I think that is probably most helpful for you and most helpful for the developer. The more specific, the easier it is for everybody. But as I said, elevations only go so far anyway, because they're projected renderings. They're not, this is what it's going to look like. And so while I'm not beholden to those when they come before us, I understand they're just kind of an idea. I think it's good for us as we continue unfolding this area that we look at those guidelines that help all parties involved. And so if it's easier for you to go with the duplex design guidelines, I'm convenient with that. And Mr. Mayor, did you
For
wanna ask?
colors and materials.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we don't start
Yes,
including like the
because the
landscaping buffering between,
Landscaping requirements are already in the
Yes,
code. We
they
don't
are.
need to worry about those.
Wonderful.
It's more of those design guidelines that I'm thinking of. And if I could, Mayor, while I have the floor, I just want to move it along, and I think we just have to do number 1 first before we can even proceed. So I'm prepared to make a motion to approve, based upon Caldwell City Code, the comprehensive plan upon the testimony, evidence, and record, and the facts presented. I move that the annexation request be approved, subject to the conditions as, well, there's no conditions on the annexation, are there? That would be later on, or? I'll just read it. I'm sorry, forgive me. Conditions as presented and subject to the approval of the proposed zoning designation.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk? Do you need to switch back? Oh. All right, we have 1 abstain, Mr. Tilmont, and then it's a 4-4. Sorry, it's carried. I apologize for that. It was a brain. It's one of those, Morgan, I'm sharing in the wealth. It passed. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, the abstain threw me off. It's the color. With that, it's approved. Let's move forward. On to the next action item. Item number 5. That was item number 4.
No, the next
Yeah.
item on there is the zoning map amendment.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve or reject preliminary plat under case number SPP 25-000018, and that'd be item number 5.
Mr. Mayor, based upon Caldwell City Code, the comprehensive plan, upon the testimony, evidence record, the facts presented in the the applicable city code approval criteria, I move that the proposed zoning of R1 be approved, subject to the conditions as presented.
Thank you for that motion. So moved. We have a second. It's for item number 5.
Second?
Motion is second, Madam Clerk. And I'll get the colors right this time. All right, we have 1 abstain, and that motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. All right, the next item on the agenda is reviewing and approving the finance report. Correction. Sorry, we need to go back. It was taken out of it.
Yes, Mayor and Council, the last item on there is the preliminary
Item number
plat.
And is this the one where I would need to include the design review recommendation?
Yeah, that would be the recommendation.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Jumped ahead.
Am I missing anything else if I'm going to take a stab at this? Okay. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
based upon the Caldwell City Code, the comprehensive plan, upon the testimony, evidence and record, the facts presented, and the applicable city code approval criteria, I move that the preliminary plat request be approved, subject to the conditions as presented, including design review, concurrent with the duplex standards to be reviewed by staff.
So moved on that motion. Motion is second, Madam Clerk. All right, that motion carries. Now we got through all 3 items. All right, next we will move on to the finance report.
Wait, can we have a? We will need a motion on the Covington
Sorry,
to
my-
continue to July 6th.
Agenda here is a little,
Oh, you are? Okay, sorry.
yes, let's go back to the ordinance, the bill and ordinance. This will be action item number 5, correct? Yes, now we're going to move on to action number 5. Bill and ordinance, bill number 81, ordinance number 3733, associated with ANN 25-000016.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Denver.
I sponsor bill number 81, ordinance number 3733, associated with annexation 25-000016, with request to move by its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
So moved. Motion is second, Madam Clerk. All right, it carries 4 and 1 abstention. Now we're good. All right, with that, that was item number 5. Item number 6, we still need to make a motion to continue that to the July 6th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I move that we continue item number 6 to a date certain of July 6, 6 PM at this location.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, Madam Clerk. All right, that motion carries. That was the continuance for item number 6 to a July 6th City Council meeting. Thank you, Councilor Allgood. Now we're going to move on to the finance report.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Tillman.
I move to approve accounts payable in the amount of $3,599,806.05, represented by check numbers 193500 through 193851, and electronic payments and payroll for the amount of $858,966.15, represented by check numbers 40809 through 40832, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed by the office of the city clerk.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. You may now cast your vote. All right, that motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the reports from council. We'll start with Councilor Tillman.
I have nothing for tonight.
Councilor Register. And just for those aware, Councilor Stoddard was excused tonight. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just go back to the Historic Preservation Commission. A lot of really great things going on there, working on their master plan, and they're an exciting group of people that really care about us not losing our identity in a historical way, and I'm looking forward to seeing that plan finalized. It's just about done, and we're going through some more steps that are necessary, but some neat things happening there. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask you about the article in the Statesman. I was concerned about the story regarding the flock cameras and our technology, and I was particularly concerned if they quoted you correctly in your comments. Have you had the chance to meet with either the police chief or his staff or the flock representatives to get the facts and details about how that works?
Yes, Councilor Williams, I've met with them.
You have?
Yes.
Okay, it's alarming to me that those comments are being made when there's other discussions that need to happen, and as we're trying so hard and saying so often that the division in the community, when you have representatives of the city dueling in the media, it seems counterproductive to me. So that was quite concerning to me just to read that article.
Duly noted, Councilor Williams. Thank you. Councilor Allgood.
Our first budget hearing is Thursday at 4 p.m. right here. And again, kind of along the lines of Councilor Williams, there's, again, a lot of dueling and information, mostly misinformation, online, social media. Come to the budget hearings. If you really want to know the truth about what the city is spending money on and how the city is spending money, come to the budget hearings. Hear it firsthand. The stuff you're seeing out there has different levels of accuracy, but what you'll hear here Thursday at 4 p.m. will be accurate, and you can count on that. And so if there's questions about where the city's at financially, this is the place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Williams. Correction, Councilor Allgood. Councilor Denver.
Thank you. Just to remind everybody, there's a lot of great things going on in Caldwell. We have Prime on the Plaza this Thursday, right after our budget meeting that I know is going to be cut really short because we all want to have good Prime on the Plaza. And we also have the Carrie French Memorial dedication on Friday morning. So for those of you who feel so inclined to come and honor one of our community's fallen heroes. There's plenty of other great things going on in our community. We're getting into the throes of summer, and I would hope that everybody would find time to patronize the great businesses that we have downtown on our plaza and in our city.
Thank you, Councilor Denver, for bringing those up. And just information, a couple things. The pool is open, so for those as the weather gets warmer, please visit our pool. A lot of great staff have got that place looking great, ready to use. We got some new cabanas, I believe, that were just put up to replace the old ones. The pool is heated, even though it's a little bit lower temperature. Also, yes, we do have Prime on the Plaza. We did hear Roger Brooks today during a workshop, and for those that are able to make it tomorrow night, I believe it's at 6 p.m., and the open house is from 5 to 6 at Caldwell High School, 3401 South Indiana. Roger's going to be presenting his plan to the public. That's associated with the Chamber of Commerce, and with that, we'll go ahead and move to the last item on the agenda. It's going to be a executive session motion, if someone would like to
Mr.
make
Mayor.
that. Councilor Tillman.
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061C and F.
All right, some motion, so moved. And a second. Madam Clerk? All right, the motion carries. We are now in executive session. And thank you for those that attended tonight, and have a good evening.